My name is Vincent Hale, and for 14 years, I thought I'd built a stable life. A business I built from scratch, a home held together by my own hands, and a wife who once said she loved the man who smelled like sawdust and sweat. Turns out, that version of me isn't good enough anymore. Lately, everything I do is an embarrassment to Natalia. If I come home after a 12-hour shift, "God, Vincent, you smell like a garage," she says, like it's some new sin. My truck, the one that paid our bills, carried lumber, tools, and our kids' bikes to parks, suddenly became a symbol of humiliation. "I hate being seen in that thing," she'd mutter. A truck. Not an affair. Not a lie. A truck. It got worse after her friend Kathy got divorced and found herself a shiny new boyfriend. A boat owner with white teeth and a full-time tan. Suddenly Natalia started scrolling Instagram like it was a lifestyle catalog she was owed. "Why can't you get a normal job?" she asked once. I laughed. "What, manager at the mall? Should I sell baseball caps for a living?" Her silence told me the answer wasn't a joke. She didn't want a husband, she wanted a prop. The kids started slipping away too. Madeline stopped hugging me in the mornings, claiming I smelled like work. Dominic stopped helping me in the garage, though he used to beg for it. Weekend movies died. Family dinners felt scripted. Their eyes looked through me, not at me. The house grew colder even in summer. And the worst part? Natalia didn't even try to hide the contempt. Her phone lived face down. Her calls moved outside. Her late work nights never matched the office hours I verified. I knew the signs. I'd seen them years ago, when I caught her texting a yoga instructor at midnight. I forgave her then, but I didn't forget. People change. But cheaters? They rehearse. Christmas, the day they tried to replace me. The morning felt wrong from the moment I woke. The kids were dressed like they were heading to brunch. Natalia was in full makeup before sunrise. A first. No laughter, no pajamas, no chaos. Just tension. Dominic handed me an envelope. No smile. No warmth. Inside, a restraining order, filed 3 days earlier, accusing me of being dangerous, volatile, unstable. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. My mind went blank. That's when the front door opened. A tall, polished man stepped inside. Clean-shaven, suit pressed. Not a hint of real work on him. Natalia flew to his side. "Kids," she said brightly, "you can finally meet your real father figure." Real father figure. Dominic and Madeline lit up like Christmas finally started. Calvin, the financial advisor whose business card I found in her car, smiled like he'd just won a prize. He flashed keys. "Want to see your new ride?" The kids ran out to admire a luxury SUV parked in my driveway. Dominic turned to me. "Calvin has a boat, Dad. Not a truck that breaks down." Madeline added, "He doesn't smell like engines." A rehearsed line, a weapon sharpened in whispered coaching sessions. Natalia stood there, arms crossed. "We've been planning this transition since August," she said. "The kids deserve better." Better, meaning richer, cleaner. Not me. They had planned everything. And Calvin genuinely believed he'd replaced me in a morning. But here's what they didn't know. I had been preparing for this day for years. The envelopes. I walked out to my truck, the embarrassing one, opened my old metal toolbox, and pulled out 2 thick envelopes. The inside of me was shaking, but outside, calm. I handed them to the kids. "Open these when you turn 18. Natalia snapped. "What's in them?" I smiled. The truth. It was the calm before the storm, and the moment everything started to unravel. Natalia didn't rage, not at first. She froze, the way people do right before they realize the fire they set is spreading in the wrong direction. "What's in those envelopes, Vincent?" Her voice was sharp, controlled, already cracking at the edges. I didn't answer. Not fully. "Information the kids have a right to know," I said. "When they're old enough to understand it." She hated that answer, which told me it was the right one. Calvin stepped forward next, adjusting his suit like he was about to give a TED Talk. "Vincent, let's not complicate things. The kids are adjusting fine to their new family structure." I laughed. It wasn't intentional, it just slipped out. The man was trying to sell me a fantasy inside my own living room. "New family structure?" I echoed. "You mean the one you rehearsed like a school play?" That struck a nerve. Natalia's eyes darted between us, her breathing quickening. She wanted control back, but it was already slipping. Too late. Much too late. 6 days later, the panic begins. The phone calls didn't start immediately. Natalia played it cool at first, trying to pretend Christmas morning hadn't blown up in her face. But by the 6th day, my phone buzzed so much it felt like it was trying to vibrate its way out of reality. "Natalia." Again, and again, and again. Every voicemail sounded the same. "What did you give the kids? What's in the envelopes? You're manipulating them. You're trying to turn them against me." I said nothing. Silence is a powerful tool, especially when someone is drowning in their own guilt. The best part? Calvin started calling too. Vincent, he said in his fake calm voice. I'd like to meet, privately, like mature adults. Of course he did. Because the only thing scarier than the truth is the possibility of the truth. The coffee shop meeting. We met in a quiet corner of a local cafe, the kind of place where people stare at laptops and pretend not to listen. Calvin arrived dressed like he was attending a board meeting. Sharp suit, expensive watch, perfect hair, the whole package. But behind the polish, he looked nervous. He started with his usual script. I never wanted to interfere between you and the kids. I only want what's best for everyone. I stared at him. Cut the speech. What do you actually want? He shifted, mouth tightening. What's in those envelopes? There it was. The fear. I leaned back in my chair, calm, unbothered. Things your conscience is already repeating, I assume. He swallowed, hard. Then he tried a different approach, financial. Vincent, are you planning legal action? Do you have something Natalia hasn't told me? I tilted my head. Why? Worried she shared marital assets with her financial advisor? Or that your little apartment sessions weren't as discreet as you thought? His face lost color. I slid my phone across the table, open to a single photo. Natalia entering an apartment. Different clothes, different day, time-stamped, clear as glass. Calvin's hands trembled as he locked his jaw. Vincent, you've been spying on us. No, I said calmly. I've been paying attention. The word that broke him. I leaned in. Calvin, I have documentation. The word hit him like a bullet. Documentation. His eyes widened. His breathing hitched. The mask cracked. He wanted so badly to ask for details, but asking would confirm everything Natalia had hidden from him, and everything she had lied about. So I stood and said, relax. Whatever I have, the kids will know when they turn 18. His composure vanished. That's unacceptable, he snapped. You can't let children hold something like that. I shrugged. Not children, adults. And yes, I can. Then I walked out, leaving him staring at my empty chair like it had just sentenced him. Natalia's desperation. That night, Natalia called me 12 times. Voicemails, texts, accusations, screaming, begging. You're ruining everything. You're manipulating the kids. You're poisoning their minds. No, I thought. You did that. I just handed them the flashlight. Dominic opens the envelope. 3 days later, Dominic texted me. Dad, can I open it early? I can't stop thinking about it. I replied, it's yours. Open it when you're ready. 20 minutes later, he called. Not crying softly. Not sniffing. He was sobbing full body, betrayed to the core sobs. Dad, it's all true, he choked out. All of it. It's worse than I thought. And then, silence, followed by rage. True, burning, righteous rage. The kind that changes a kid forever. The kind that destroys illusions. The kind that puts an end to lies. And that's when everything collapsed for Natalia. Her perfect script? Destroyed. Her new, family vision? Shattered. Her carefully rehearsed Christmas betrayal? Exposed. Her kids? No longer hers to mold. The unraveling had begun, and she could do nothing to stop it. Natalia spent years perfecting control. Her image, her narrative, her family, her lies. But nothing prepares a manipulator for the day the mask slips in front of the very people they were trying to fool. And Dominic? He didn't just see behind the curtain. He ripped it down. The call that broke her script. An hour after Dominic opened his envelope, he called Natalia. Not to ask. Not to understand. Not to listen. But to confront. His voice was steady. The kind of steady that only appears when anger is hotter than fear. Mom, he said. Why did you lie? Silence. Natalia always had a rehearsed answer. A diversion ready. A soft tone. A manipulative tilt of the voice. But not this time. Because Dominic wasn't asking like a child. He was demanding like a witness. He listed everything. The apartment. The early phone calls. The timeline. The rehearsed lines for Christmas. The staged new family reveal. The plan to slowly cut me out. Natalia panicked. Sweetheart. Those documents are out of context. He cut her off. Did you practice what we were supposed to say on Christmas? Yes or no? Natalia froze. Dominic pressed harder. And why was Calvin at my baseball game in September when you told us you met him in November? Natalia's voice cracked. Dominic, you're too young to understand adult decisions. Stop. He wasn't yelling, he didn't have to. Just tell me the truth. Did you plan to replace Dad? When she couldn't answer, the silence told him everything. That's when Dominic said the one sentence Natalia never expected to hear. You betrayed the family, not Dad. Madeline's turn. Madeline was quieter, softer, but smarter than Natalia ever gave her credit for. She texted me, Mom keeps asking about my envelope. Is she scared of something? I responded, open it whenever you feel ready. She did. Half an hour later, she texted again. Dad, why would she do this to us? Not to me, to us. Because the documents didn't just reveal infidelity. They revealed manipulation. How Natalia prepped the kids to embarrass me. How Calvin coached them on what to say. How they planned to reduce my custody to nothing. How they mocked me behind my back. How they strategized in texts like it was a corporate project. Madeline wasn't fiery like Dominic. She was devastated. She asked the one question kids shouldn't have to ask. Did Mom ever love you? Or us? I didn't lie. I simply said, you deserved better than her choices. Natalia breaks down. Natalia's calls escalated into emotional chaos. The kind that only happens when someone realizes their lies have nowhere left to hide. You're turning them against me. You're destroying their trust. You're manipulating innocent children. No, children don't stay loyal to lies when the truth is right in front of them. And she knew that. Dominic refused to come back home. Madeline stopped answering her questions. Both children began noticing every inconsistency. The sudden late nights. The secrecy. The rehearsed phrases. The fake tears. Their perfect new family fantasy was imploding. And Calvin? He was sweating. Because the kids weren't just rejecting the story. They were asking questions he couldn't afford to answer. Calvin's call, cracks showing. When Calvin called, his voice was tight, nervous, barely holding on. Vincent, listen, I think there are misunderstandings. The kids saw things that... No misunderstandings, I said. They saw the truth. He didn't deny it. Instead, he asked what no guilty man should ask. What else is in the envelopes? His voice carried fear, not of me but of consequences. He pressed. What did Natalia tell you? You don't have any legal grounds, do you? Nothing that could cause trouble? Every question revealed more guilt and panic. I simply replied, you'll find out soon enough. The family meeting that became a meltdown. Natalia and Calvin begged to meet. Just to clear the air, Calvin said. In the best interest of the kids. We met at a quiet cafe. Natalia looked exhausted. Mascara smudged, eyes red, hands shaking. Calvin kept adjusting his tie like he was suffocating. They rehearsed a little speech. Vincent, we just want peace. The restraining order was for stability. We didn't mean to hurt you. This is about the children. Cut in. That's lovely. Now tell me why we're really here. Natalia snapped instantly. What was in those envelopes? There it was. The truth. Not concern for the kids. Not guilt. Not closure. Just fear. Fear of exposure. I leaned forward. Everything you hoped they'd never find out. Their faces dropped. Natalia looked like the room was spinning. Calvin looked like he'd swallowed a scorpion. And in that moment they understood. Their carefully crafted lies were dead. Their plan to replace me was ashes. Their control over the narrative was gone. And the truth? The truth belonged to the kids now. And once the truth belongs to children, not lawyers, not parents, not manipulators, there is no force on earth that can bury it again. Natalia and Calvin didn't understand that yet. But they were about to. Because the moment the kids learned the truth, the most dangerous thing happened. They started asking their own questions. And kids don't stop asking until lies collapse. Dominic's transformation. Dominic wasn't the same boy anymore. The moment he read that envelope, he changed. The softness was gone. The hesitation disappeared. In its place, clarity, purpose, fire. He confronted Natalia again, this time with evidence in hand. Printouts, timelines, timestamps. Why did you coach us to embarrass Dad? Why did Calvin tell you to make Dad look unstable? Why did you plan the restraining order months before you filed it? Why did you lie about when you met him? Natalia cracked. Dominic, listen. No, he said, voice steady. You listen. That broke her. Because Dominic wasn't confused anymore. He wasn't manipulated. He wasn't loyal to her script. He was loyal to the truth. Madeline's quiet rebellion. Madeline opened her envelope the next morning. Natalia tried everything to stop it. Crying, pleading, guilt-tripping, promising family vacations, even saying, your father is lying to hurt us. But Madeline wasn't stupid. She saw the fear in her mother's eyes. She saw the desperation. She saw the cracks. And kids may be young, but they know exactly when an adult is lying. When she finished reading the envelope, she didn't yell. She didn't cry. She simply looked at Natalia and said, you tried to make me hate Dad. Natalia tried to reach for her. Madeline stepped back. That single step told Natalia everything. It was over. Natalia's breakdown begins. By now, Natalia was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. She called me 6 times in 1 hour. You're manipulating them. You're turning them against me. You're poisoning my relationship with my children. She didn't understand something crucial. I didn't need to turn the kids against her. She had already done that. I simply stopped protecting her from the consequences. Calvin starts cracking. Calvin's calls were different. Not angry, not emotional, afraid. He wanted to meet again, to discuss things rationally, to make sure there were no misunderstandings. Which was code for, please tell me you don't have more evidence. At the coffee shop, Calvin tried to act calm. But the twitch in his jaw, the tapping fingers, the darting eyes, he looked like a man who'd seen the first few dominoes fall, and knew the rest were coming. Vincent, he said, voice tight, Natalia is overwhelmed. We're trying to help the kids adjust. I leaned forward. Calvin, stop talking to me like I'm a client. Talk to me like the man who helped my wife plan my removal. He froze. The polished calm shattered. What exactly do you think you have? He whispered. I smiled. A lot. He swallowed visibly. I hadn't even shown him everything. Just one photo of that apartment door was enough to hollow him out. The family meeting, a disaster in slow motion. Natalia and Calvin insisted on a civil discussion. Translation. They were drowning and wanted a life raft. We met at a cafe, neutral ground. Natalia looked like she hadn't slept in days. Calvin looked overprepared and underconfident. They started with their script. We were trying to do what's best for the kids. The restraining order was about stability. We didn't plan anything malicious. I let them talk. Then I asked, so, what do you want? Natalia exploded. We need to know what's in those envelopes. There it was. The truth. This wasn't about the kids. It was about fear, regret, guilt, exposure. I leaned forward. Their future. Natalia's hands shook. Calvin's jaw clenched. You're destroying everything, she whispered. No, I said. You destroyed everything. I'm just the one who stopped covering it up. The restraining order hearing, the turning point. The courtroom was cold, quiet, and packed with tension. Natalia sat with her lawyer, mascara already smudged. Calvin sat stiff, trying to look innocent. Both looked like they were sitting on a bomb. My lawyer, Ron, the most intimidating man this side of hell, arrived in a black suit sharp enough to file its own case. Natalia expected the kids to speak against me. She expected fear, obedience, shame. Instead, Dominic stood tall, shoulders back, eyes steady. My father is not a danger, he told the judge. My mother and Calvin lied to us. They planned everything. Madeline followed. My mom wanted us to hate our dad, she said softly. She practiced lines with us. We didn't understand it then. We do now. Natalia's face collapsed. Calvin's jaw dropped. The judge asked one question. Do you feel unsafe around your father? Both children said, no, we want to live with him. And right then, the restraining order died. Just like that, case dismissed. Natalia was speechless. Calvin was pale. Dominic smirked. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Justice. Then came the twist they never saw coming. As we left the courtroom, the judge's voice echoed. Mr. Hale, your petition for a protective order against Mrs. Hale and Mr. Sutton is granted. Natalia and Calvin froze. 500 yards. Stay away. From me. From my home. From my children. For the first time, they had boundaries they couldn't break. And I walked out of that courthouse with my children beside me. The truth had won. But the reckoning hadn't even started yet. The courtroom victory shook Natalia. The kids turning against her gutted her. But Calvin was the one who felt the earthquake coming. Because after the restraining order collapsed and the protective order flipped against them, the fantasy life he built with Natalia began to fall apart piece by piece. And the funny thing about men like Calvin, they only stay perfect as long as they're in control. The moment control disappears, they crumble. Calvin begins to unravel. He started calling me, not with threats, not with confidence, with fear. Vincent, can we meet again? We need to talk. We need to clear the air. Clear the air. Because nothing says, I'm innocent, like a man begging to know what evidence you hold against him. I met him, not because I needed the conversation, but because I wanted to watch him sweat. And oh, he sweat. The moment I sat down, he leaned in, desperate. Vincent, if you could just assure me that whatever you collected won't damage our reputations. I smirked. Reputations? Calvin, the kids already know everything. His face drained. He wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid of the collapse of the image he sold himself. That spotless, polished persona. Because beneath the suit, he was built from insecurity and pretension. One good hit and the entire structure would split. And he knew it. Natalia's world falls apart. Natalia called next. Not to fight. Not to scream. To beg. Vincent, please. Whatever's in those envelopes. Please don't let the kids hate me. But the truth was already out. The children weren't manipulated by me. They weren't coerced. They simply saw their mother clearly for the first time. her choices, her plotting, her cruelty, her selfishness. And some truths break bonds permanently. The one truth they never expected. What neither of them understood was this: I never needed to destroy their lives. They had already destroyed their own. They just hadn't accepted it yet. But acceptance was coming. And it arrived on a cold night outside a bar. The night Calvin met reality. Calvin thought he could walk through the city as if nothing had happened. He thought losing control meant losing a game, not losing safety. He thought consequences were theoretical, until they became physical. He stepped out of a bar, sipping a drink, his perfect life still playing in his mind like he could salvage it with enough charm and money. He didn't notice the shadows moving behind him. He didn't notice the footsteps. He didn't see the first fist, or the second, or the steel-toed boot that shattered his ribs. 5 men, silent, efficient, brutal. He hit the ground in seconds, gasping, choking, crawling, and then a hand grabbed him by the collar. I stepped into the dim glow of the alley light, mask in place, until I pulled it off and let him see. His swollen eyes widened. "It's me, Calvin," I whispered. "I want you to know exactly who did this." He choked on blood. I slammed him against the pavement. "If you go to the police, this continues. Next time you won't walk. Next time you won't breathe." He trembled. "You tell Natalia this. She runs. Far. And fast." I dropped him on the concrete like discarded trash. My men vanished into the dark. And I walked away slowly, deliberately. Because fear spreads slower when you rush. But when you walk, it follows them forever. The aftermath: silence, then disappearance. Calvin didn't call again. Natalia didn't call again. Within a week, both of them vanished from my city's radar. Natalia resurfaced months later in Alaska, working quietly in a cold, anonymous office building. Calvin stayed in the hospital for weeks. He didn't file a police report. He didn't return calls. He didn't show up at custody hearings. He simply disappeared from the narrative of my children's lives. Just like I intended. The courts deliver the final blow. With both of them gone and all evidence laid bare, the judge granted. Heavy checkmark: full custody. Heavy checkmark: no contact order. Heavy checkmark: immediate removal of Calvin as a step-parent influence. Heavy checkmark: approval for relocation and schooling changes. It wasn't a victory. It was justice. The kind that arrives slow, steady, and final. Rebuilding what they tried to destroy. Dominic moved in permanently. Madeline followed soon after. The house felt warm again. Laughter replaced tension. Conversations replaced suspicion. Trust replaced manipulation. One night, Dominic nudged my shoulder. "Dad, thanks for letting us see the truth." Madeline leaned against me and whispered, "I like it here. Feels real. I don't miss them." I looked at my kids. Their smiles returning. Their shoulders relaxed. Their eyes clear. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because I won. Not because they lost. But because the lies were gone. And the truth? The truth finally belonged to the right people. My children. My family. My life. And for the first time in a very long time, I could breathe. Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more intense tales. See you in the next one.